Back in my lifelong small town, the late autumn wind had a sharp, wintry chill that found its way into every crack of my old house. My name is Eleanor, and at 65, I'd just retired from the high school where I'd taught for decades. That old house had seen nearly my entire life unfold, from a young teacher to a widow, and now to this old woman with frosted hair. On the mantelpiece, a photo of my late husband stood, his expression stern and imposing. Thinking of him stirred a tangled mix of sorrow and the strange relief of a heavy weight being lifted. People say you shouldn't speak ill of the dead, but the scars he left on my soul with his fists and cruel words could never fade. He was a tyrant, a violent man who treated our son and me like his personal property. The day he was diagnosed with terminal cancer was the same day our son Julian was accepted to a state university. I swallowed my pain and resentment to care for my husband until his last breath. I did it out of duty, so Julian could focus on his future. The day he died, I didn't shed a tear. I just felt a crushing weight vanish. From then on, it was just my son and me. I poured all my love and energy into raising him, taking odd jobs on top of teaching to pay for his education. Julian was a bright, decisive kid, but he also had a frighteningly quick temper, a trait I feared he'd inherited from his father. Whenever he scowled or raised his voice, a familiar dread crept into my heart. I tried to use a mother's tenderness to soothe his sharp edges, hoping to guide him toward a gentler path. It seemed I'd succeeded. Julian graduated with honors, landed a great job in the city, and quickly became a regional manager. He married a sweet girl named Clara. At last, I thought the burden was lifted. I imagined my golden years in peace, tending my tomato plants and taking walks with other ladies at sunset. But Fee, as it often does, had other plans. One afternoon, I was in my garden when the phone rang. It was Julian. "Hey, Mom, what are you up to?" Even in a simple greeting, his voice carried a subtle pressure. I wiped my dirty hands on my apron and chuckled. "Just checking on my tomatoes. They're almost ready to pick. Is everything all right, son?" "Mom, Clara and I have been talking," he said, getting straight to the point. "I need you to start getting your things together. I'm driving down this weekend to bring you to the city to live with us." I froze, the trowel still in my hand. The idea of leaving this place, of abandoning the quiet, predictable life I knew, felt like a punch to the gut. "Oh, Julian, honey, let's not," I said, my voice weak. "I'm so used to it here. I don't know a soul in the city. I wouldn't be comfortable, and I'd just get in the way of you and your wife. You're both so busy with your jobs." "What bother, Mom?" Julian's tone was already laced with impatience. "It's a son's duty to look after his mother. Besides, what if something happened to you out there in the country? Who would even know? I've already made up my mind, so please don't argue. We've already got a room ready for you." That phrase, "I've already made up my mind," sent an icy chill down my spine. It was exactly what my late husband used to say. Still, I tried to refuse gently. "Julian, dear, I know you're worried about me, but I'm really too old to start over somewhere new. I won't have any friends or my garden. I'll be bored to tears." "What do you mean, no friends?" he shot back. "You'll come out with us. Clara can take you shopping. Here, just talk to Clara." There was a brief silence before a clear, gentle voice flowed through the phone. "Mom, it's Clara." "Oh, hello, dear," I said, my tone softening immediately. "Mom, please come and live with us," she pleaded. "The condo is huge, and it'll be so much nicer having you here. Julian is always worried about your health. He can't relax knowing you're living out there all by yourself. You can come here, and I'll take care of everything. We can chat. It'll be so nice, Mom." Clara's voice had a strange power. Her warmth and sincerity made it almost impossible to say no. I could tell she was a good-hearted girl, but I also heard the compliance in her words. This decision was made by Julian, and she was simply expected to obey. I sighed, letting the silence hang between us. My mind was a war zone. On one side was the quiet freedom I craved after a lifetime of turmoil. On the other was my duty, my love for my son, and a deep-seated fear that if I refused, Julian would explode. I was terrified of his anger. I had already lived through one hell built on rage and didn't have the strength to face another. "All right then," I finally surrendered. "Let me pack for a few days." "Oh, wonderful!" Clara's voice was bright with relief. My husband will be there this weekend to pick you up. After we hung up, I stood in my vegetable garden, feeling the world's weight settle back onto my shoulders. Over the next few days, I packed. I didn't have much, just a few old outfits, a faded photo album, and a couple of my favorite books. As I flipped through the album, my eyes landed on a picture of Julian as a little boy, his smile so bright it could light up a room. My heart softened. Maybe I was just being paranoid. He was my son, the boy I'd raised with my own hands. He was bringing me to live with him because he was a good son, because he was worried. I should be happy, so I packed up half a life. Album of memories for a new chapter. I said goodbye to my neighbors, the old friends I shared my mornings and evenings with. They were all happy for me, saying how lucky I was to have a son who would take me to the city to care for me. I just smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. That weekend, Julian pulled up in a gleaming black luxury sedan. Seeing my son in a perfectly tailored suit, the very picture of success, I felt a wave of pride. He bustled around, helping with my luggage, constantly asking if I was comfortable. Clara had come with him, and for a while their warm energy chased away my worries. "Mom, look, I bought you a few things," Julian said, opening the trunk to reveal boxes of expensive vitamins and supplements. "Oh, you shouldn't have spent all this money," I chided gently. "I don't need any of this." "I don't lack for money, Mom," he said sincerely. "Just time to take care of you. I can only focus on my work if I know you're living with us, where I can keep an eye on you." His words were meant to be comforting, but they felt like a cage closing around me. The car pulled away, leaving my little town, the old familiar roof, and my beloved garden behind. As we drove down the highway, skyscrapers rose on the horizon like a forest of giants. The noise and chaotic energy of the city already made me feel small and overwhelmed. Julian and Clara's condo was on the 18th floor of a sleek, modern high-rise. It was much bigger than I'd imagined, with gleaming hardwood floors and expensive furniture. Julian led me to a small but cozy room with a large window overlooking a lush park. "This is your room. I had a TV and an air conditioner installed for you. If you need anything, just tell Clara. Don't be shy." "It's wonderful, son. Thank you both so much." Clara moved around me with quiet efficiency, helping me put my clothes away. That girl was always busy, a gentle smile on her face. But I started to notice something odd. Whenever Julian was in the room, her smile seemed to tighten, and a flicker of what looked like fear would flash across her eyes. Our first dinner together had all the appearances of a warm family meal. The food was incredible, a lavish spread of my favorite dishes. "Mom, eat more. You're too thin," Julian said, placing a huge piece of fish into my bowl. "I can get it myself, son. You eat," I replied. "Clara, aren't you going to get Mom some more soup? What are you just sitting there for?" he said, turning to his wife. His voice wasn't loud, but it dripped with an authority that was impossible to ignore. Clara flinched as if struck and quickly scrambled to ladle soup into my bowl. I saw her hand tremble for a second. I pretended not to notice and gave her a warm smile. "Thank you, dear. The soup is delicious." For the rest of the meal, Julian did almost all the talking. He went on about his work, massive projects, and the intense pressures of competition. He spoke of his achievements with a complete lack of modesty, his voice full of self-satisfaction. Clara and I just sat, listening and nodding at the right moments. It hit me that my son was no longer the little boy who needed my protection. He had become a man of the world who wielded power, and he had brought that power home. That night, lying in the unfamiliar, overly soft bed, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The sounds of the city seeped in through the window, a distant siren, the faint murmur of voices from the street. Everything was new and made me feel deeply uneasy. I tried to soothe myself, repeating in my head, "Everything will be fine. I just need time to adjust." For the first few days in my son's luxurious condo, I started to believe my worries had been for nothing. The new arrangement wasn't as suffocating as I'd feared. In fact, it was filled with what seemed like genuine care. In the mornings, after Julian left for work, Clara would often take me to the farmer's market. She wouldn't let me carry a single bag, always asking, "Nang, Mom, what do you feel like eating today? I'll make it for you." She'd listen patiently to my rambling stories about my years as a teacher. Sometimes, she'd take me to a huge shopping mall and insist on buying me new clothes, no matter how many times I told her not to. "Mom, that looks so elegant on you," she'd say, her smile soft. "Julian would be so happy to see you wearing it." Julian also played the part of the devoted son perfectly. Every evening when he got home, no matter how exhausted, his first stop was my room to say hello. "Mom, how are you feeling today? Do you need me to buy you more of those supplements?" He even bought me an electronic blood pressure monitor and gave me careful instructions. "Mom, you need to measure it twice a day, once in the morning and once at night. Have Clara write down the numbers in this notebook so I can check on them." It all seemed thoughtful, but it felt more like I was a project he needed to manage. But this fragile piece was a thin sheet of ice over dark water. It happened one night about 2 weeks after I'd moved in. The city had fallen quiet, with only the dim glow of streetlights filtering through my window. I'm a light sleeper, and when the clock on the wall chimed 3 times, I was jolted awake by a familiar sound at a strange time, the rush of water. It was the shower from the main bathroom next to my bedroom. The fierce, rushing water shattered the night's silence. Who would be taking a shower at 3 in the morning? I strained my ears, but there was only that relentless sound. Maybe Julian or Clara was sick. Worry tightened in my stomach. I wanted to check, but was afraid of waking them. The sound lasted for about 15 minutes, then stopped as abruptly as it began. I couldn't get back to sleep. The next morning at breakfast, I tried to sound casual. "Julian," I said, "were you feeling unwell last night? Around 3, I heard someone taking a shower." Julian was reading the newspaper and never left the page. "Oh, it's nothing, Mom," he replied flatly. "This new project has been incredibly stressful. I was feeling keyed up and couldn't sleep. I just got up to take a shower to cool off." His explanation sounded reasonable, but I saw Clara, carrying oatmeal from the kitchen, freeze for a split second. The chopsticks in her hand almost slipped. She quickly composed herself, set the oatmeal down, and forced a smile. "Yes, Mom, he's been working so hard lately. He tosses and turns all night. Please don't worry." My daughter-in-law's fleeting panic didn't escape me. After decades as a teacher, I'd become an expert at reading subtle expressions. Something was not right. But I didn't push it. I just quietly ate my breakfast. I had hoped it was a one-time thing, but I was wrong. 2 nights later, again at precisely 3 in the morning, the sound came back. The same sound. A faucet wrenched open, followed by that same rushing flow of water. This time, I felt an inexplicable chill. A shower for stress once was believable, but for it to happen again, at the exact same time, that was no coincidence. The following nights became a terrifying vigil. As 3 in the morning approached, my heart would pound. Some nights the water would turn on, and other nights it would remain silent. This unpredictable ritual was a kind of mental torture. My sleep was shattered. I was always in a state of half-slumber, my ears pricked for the slightest sound. I started to watch my son and daughter-in-law like a hawk. During the day, Julian went to work as always, but I could see the exhaustion and irritability behind his eyes. He seemed to snap over the smallest things. I tried to gently ask my daughter-in-law about it. "Clara, is something wrong? You haven't been looking well. Has Julian been giving you a hard time?" She jumped as if startled, quickly waving her hands and refusing to meet my eyes. "No, nothing, Mom. I'm probably just not sleeping well. Julian is very good to me." Her words and her panicked expression were in complete opposition. I knew she was hiding something. A vague, shapeless fear began to grow in my mind, connecting Julian to those bizarre 3 a.m. showers. I couldn't stand it any longer and decided I had to have a more direct talk with my son. I waited for a time after Clara had gone to bed when it was just the 2 of us. "Julian, sit down. I need to talk to you," I said, patting the spot on the sofa next to me. He seemed surprised by my seriousness, but sat. "What is it, Mom?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "Son, you need to listen. I know you're under pressure at work, but you cannot keep showering at 3 in the morning. I've been reading about it. That's when your body's energy is lowest and the temperature is coldest. Showering then is incredibly dangerous. You could catch a terrible cold, or worse, have a stroke or suffer sudden cardiac arrest. You're a young man with your future ahead of you. You have to take care of your body." I said it all in one breath, my words filled with a mother's worry. I thought he would listen, or at least explain. He did neither. Julian's face went dark, his mask of patience crumbling to reveal raw irritation. "Mom, just enjoy your retirement and stop meddling in my life." The door to his bedroom slammed shut with a deafening bang, a brutal punctuation mark that cut off any hope of reaching him. Julian's cold dismissal and the slam of the door felt like a bucket of ice water. From that day on, the atmosphere in the house grew heavy with unspoken tension. Julian barely spoke to me, avoiding my gaze and treating me like I was invisible. It was then, as my focus shifted from the nightly showers, that I started to pay closer attention to Clara. One afternoon, we were chopping vegetables together. As Clara reached for a basket on a high shelf, her sleeve slid down, revealing a sickening patch of purple and blue on her fair-skinned wrist. The bruise's shape was unnatural, not like a simple bump, but exactly like the mark left by 5 fingers gripping with terrifying force. My heart stopped. A familiar, sickening feeling washed over me. I instinctively grabbed her hand, my voice trembling. "My goodness, Clara, your wrist, what happened?" Clara jumped as if zapped, violently yanking her hand away and fumbling to pull her sleeve down. She was flustered, her eyes darting around. It's nothing, Mom," she stammered. "Yesterday, I was in a hurry and slammed it into the corner of my desk. My skin just bruises so easily." She kept her head down, unable to look me in the eye. It was such a clumsy lie. As a former victim of domestic violence myself, I know the difference between a bruise from a fall and one from being grabbed. The marks on her wrist were the unmistakable signature of an angry hand. My chest tightened. The ghost of my abusive husband suddenly materialized before me. During his rages, he would grab my arm just like that, leaving the exact same marks. And just like Clara, I used to lie to our neighbors, making up absurd excuses about falling or bumping into a door. History was repeating itself in the cruelest way, right here in my son's home. I couldn't bring myself to call out her lie. I knew from experience that questioning a victim only makes them retreat further into their fear. I just said softly, "You need to be more careful. A woman has to know how to protect herself." Clara mumbled a quiet, "Okay," and made an excuse to use the bathroom. I watched her slender, lonely back as she walked away, my heart breaking. My suspicions grew heavier. I started seeing everything through a new, horrifying lens. A few days later, I saw another sign. When she came out for breakfast, she kept her head down. When I called her name, I saw her eyes were red and swollen from a long night of crying. "Clara, what's wrong with your eyes?" I asked, concerned. "Did you not sleep well?" This time, she seemed to have a lie ready. "Oh, I went out on the balcony for some fresh air last night, and a bug must have bitten my eyelid. It was so itchy I couldn't stop rubbing it." A bug, I thought, on the 18th floor with screens on every window? The lies were becoming more ridiculous. Then the sound of the shower at 3 in the morning clicked into place with horrifying clarity. After every beating, my husband had a strange ritual. He would go into the bathroom and stand under a stream of cold water for a long time, as if trying to wash away his sins, to rinse off the rage, as if the water could somehow cleanse him of his inner demons, allowing him to wake up the next morning and pretend nothing had happened. The sound of water started up again from the bathroom, but this time, I didn't stay in bed. My heart was pounding violently. I took a deep, shaky breath and quietly slipped out from under the covers. Step by silent step, I crept toward the bathroom. A lifetime as a teacher had taught me to be patient, and I needed those skills now more than ever. The hallway was pitch black, except for a sliver of light from under the bathroom door. As I got closer, I heard more than just water. I heard a muffled gasp, a soft whimper, and then my son, his low, cold whisper. "Do you dare to talk back to me again? Huh?" My feet felt nailed to the floor. I had reached the bathroom door, which was not completely shut. A small crack remained, just wide enough for me to see inside. Trembling, I braced myself against the wall and slowly brought my eye to that crack. The scene inside crashed into my brain. My body went rigid. I forgot to breathe. There, under the harsh white light, was my son, Julian. He was still in his soaked pajamas. In front of him, huddled under the rushing stream of cold water, was Clara. She, too, was fully clothed, drenched, her long dark hair plastered to her pale, terrified face. Julian had one hand tangled in her hair, yanking her head back and forcing her face into the icy torrent. His face, the face of the son I had raised, was twisted into the same cruel mask of rage I had seen on my husband's face countless times. He didn't yell. He held his wife firmly, and with his other hand, he slapped her hard across her cheek. A sharp cracking sound echoed over the rush of water. Clara's body went limp, her hair still held tight. She didn't dare cry out, but a choked, desperate whimper escaped her lips. Her body shivered violently from the cold and terror. "I said," Julian repeated through clenched teeth, "will you ever talk back to me again?" My world shattered. My vague suspicions and nagging fears had just become a raw, terrifying reality. My first instinct was to burst through the door, to scream, to protect Clara. But in that instant, an ice-cold current shot through my spine, locking my muscles. The scene blurred, overlapping with a dark, suffocating memory I had buried for years. I no longer saw Julian and Clara. I saw my husband, his eyes red from liquor, grabbing my hair and forcing my head into the rain barrel in our backyard. I heard his curses, felt the searing pain and the suffocating terror of water rushing into my nose and mouth. I felt the absolute rushing powerlessness of struggling against a force you cannot overcome. That bone-deep terror, resurrected after a decade, was stronger than my love for my son, more powerful than reason. It was an animal instinct screaming, "Run, don't make a sound, don't provoke him, or you'll be next." My body obeyed. My legs didn't rush forward. They instinctively backed away, turned, and ran. I fled to my room, not daring to look back. I threw myself onto the bed and pulled the covers over my head like a wounded animal. I lay there, trembling, biting my lips so hard I tasted blood to keep from crying out. The water in the bathroom was still running, a rhythmic, cruel sound that had become the background music to my family's tragedy and my own cowardice. Then the memories flooded back. The hellish years of my marriage, the unprovoked beatings, the long nights holding my bruised body and crying silently, the mornings I carefully covered bruises with makeup before going to school. For over a decade, I had lived like that until the day he received his death sentence. The day he died, I didn't cry. I only felt overwhelming relief, as if a mountain had been lifted off my chest. I thought I was free, but I was wrong. The demon hadn't died with my husband. It had been resurrected, possessing the son I cherished more than anything. I had spent a lifetime trying to guide him away from his father's violent footsteps, but in the end, it was useless. The same poison still flowed in his veins. I had failed completely. Tears finally streamed down my face, hot and unstoppable. I wasn't just crying for Clara. I was crying for my tragic life, for a mother's powerlessness, for this cruel reality. I had escaped one cage only to realize I had indirectly pushed another woman into an identical one, a cage built and controlled by my own son. After what felt like an eternity, the water stopped. The house fell silent again, but this silence was more terrifying than any noise, thick with guilt and unspoken pain. I knew that in the next room, my son was probably sleeping soundly after his cleansing, while my daughter-in-law was licking her wounds. As my tears dried, the fear and pain settled, leaving behind a bone-chilling clarity. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't change my son, and I didn't have the courage to confront him or save Clara. I had fought that demon once, and it had drained every ounce of strength from me. I couldn't fight it again. If I stayed, I would wither away in guilt and fear. My only choice, the only path to survival, wasn't this luxurious condo, but another place. A place where I could find a lonely peace. The night of terror gave way to an unusually clear morning. Sunlight streamed through the window, a cruel contrast to the darkness in my soul. I hadn't slept, but my mind was sharper than it had been in years. The tears had run dry, and last night's paralyzing fear had distilled into a cold, firm resolve. I got out of bed, went to the bathroom, and stared at my reflection. I saw a 65-year-old woman, her hair white as snow, her eyes sunken, her face a roadmap of sorrow. But in those eyes, there was no longer submission or fear, only the look of a person who had hit rock bottom and found the only path back to the surface. I calmly prepared my last breakfast in that house. The table was set as always, but the air was suffocatingly tense. I ate quietly and deliberately, then began to speak. Julian, Clara, I began, my voice steady. I have something to say. Julian looked up, a flicker of impatience in his eyes. What is it, Mom? Go ahead. I looked directly into my son's eyes, then to my daughter-in-law, who was staring at her plate. I said each word clearly. I thought about it all night, and I've decided to move into a retirement community. They both looked up, stunned. Julian was the first to react, his calm facade shattering. He shouted, You what? A retirement community? Why? Your son is right here. You have everything you need and you want to move there? Do you want people to gossip behind my back? He wasn't upset out of love, I knew. He was upset about his pride, his public image. He was afraid of what people would say. Clara also looked up, her eyes wide with panic and a hint of desperate pleading. She stammered, Mom, did we do something wrong? Please don't go. Please stay with us. It's not your fault, dear. This place is wonderful, I lied. But city life just isn't for me, and you two should have your privacy. Newlyweds need their own life, and it's inconvenient for me to be here. I paused, then continued, painting a picture I didn't believe. Besides, I've looked into it. The retirement communities these days are lovely. There will be lots of friends my own age, book clubs, chess clubs, even gardens. I think I'll be happier with that kind of life. It's more suitable for an old woman like me. Julian continued to argue, his voice getting louder, but all his objections circled back to losing face. I listened in silence, letting him vent. When he finally ran out of steam, I looked at him, my tone resolute. I have made up my mind. This is my life, and I want to spend my final years my own way. There's no need to say anything else. The determination in my eyes seemed to shock him. He was so used to giving orders, but today he had run into a brick wall. He glared at me, then at Clara, and finally fell into a sullen, angry silence. Clara began to cry silent tears. Mom! I reached out and gently took her cold hand. Hush now, child. Don't cry. You can come visit me on the weekends. That will be enough. That morning, I packed my own bags, just a few clothes and books. Julian had already gotten on the phone and arranged for a room at a high-end retirement community on the city's edge, a move to soothe his guilt and save face. As I walked to the door with my suitcase, I took one last look around the condo, a place of stunning luxury so cold and full of pain. I looked at my son, the child in whom I had placed all my hopes, who was now an empty shell with a corrupted soul. The sadness was bottomless, and I looked at my daughter-in-law, frail and pale by the door, her eyes pools of utter despair. Life in the retirement community was so peaceful it felt unreal. There were no harsh words, no slamming doors, and no rushing shower at 3 a.m. Every day fell into a gentle rhythm, morning exercises, breakfast with new friends, reading in the library, and afternoon walks in the garden. I had found physical safety, but my soul was anything but peaceful. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of Clara's drenched hair, her pale face, and her terrified eyes would flash in my mind. The sharp crack of my son's hand hitting his wife's face still echoed in my ears. The peace here was bought with my daughter-in-law's suffering, and that knowledge turned this sanctuary into a prison of guilt. I had saved myself, but I had abandoned another soul who was drowning in hell. One afternoon, as I sat on a stone bench, a familiar voice called out, "Excuse me, are you Eleanor, the English teacher?" I looked up and recognized Margaret, a former colleague who had retired a few years before me. She still had the same warm smile and bright, intelligent eyes. This reunion was a balm to my loneliness. We eagerly caught up, talking about our health, our children, and the old days at school. Just then, a young woman with a delicate face, but with a deep, unshakable sadness in her eyes, she's walking and over. "Mom, I brought you some fruit. This is my daughter, Leah." Margaret introduced her. "Leah, say hello to Mrs. Eleanor." Looking at Leah, I felt a jolt of recognition. I saw a reflection of Clara in her, the same submissive posture and forced smile masking profound exhaustion. After Leah left, Margaret sighed, watching her daughters retreating back with pure heartache. Seeing my expression, Margaret seemed to guess what I was thinking. "Eleanor," she said gently, "you look like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. Even here, you can't find peace, can you?" Her words were like a key, unlocking the emotional floodgates. All the guilt, fear, and shame came pouring out. I told her everything: my successful but monstrous son, my pitiful daughter-in-law, the horrifying scene I had witnessed, and my own crippling cowardice. Margaret just listened quietly, her hand resting on mine. When I finished, there was no judgment in her eyes, only deep compassion. "You've been through too much," she said sympathetically. "Hearing your story, it reminds me so much of what happened with my Leah." And then she told me her daughter's story. Leah had also been trapped in an abusive marriage. Her husband was an educated, seemingly gentle man on the outside, but a monster in private. "At first, I was just as clueless," Margaret said, shaking her head with regret. "I used to tell her, 'Honey, as a wife, you have to be patient with your husband. That's how you keep a family together.' I thought her patience would change him, but I was so wrong, so terribly wrong." She explained that Leah's submissiveness only made her son-in-law more aggressive, progressing from verbal abuse to full-blown beatings. One day, Margaret's voice broke. She came home with a black eye, but what froze my blood wasn't the bruise, it was her eyes. My friend, they were no longer sad, no longer in pain. They were empty, the eyes of someone whose spirit had already died. In that moment, I knew I couldn't keep being wrong. Tears streamed down her face. I cried and apologized to my daughter. I told her she had to get a divorce, to escape that hell no matter the cost. Leah's divorce was incredibly difficult. Her husband constantly threatened her, terrorized her, and swore he would ruin her family's reputation. But this time, with her mother standing firmly by her side, Leah found her strength. Together, they hired a lawyer, gathered evidence, and fought a grueling battle in court. In the end, Leah was free. After hearing Margaret's story, I sat in stunned silence. The parallels between Leah and Clara were heartbreaking. Margaret looked me straight in the eye, her voice both sympathetic and powerful. "Eleanor, your daughter-in-law is likely in the same dark place my daughter was, and even though you are his mother, your daughter-in-law is someone else's child. She was loved and cherished by her own parents. Imagine how their hearts would break if they knew your son was abusing her. What parent doesn't ache for their own child?" Every word from Margaret was a knife in my heart. "I know, Margaret, I know all of it," I gasped. "But because of my own past, it left such a deep scar. I'm still so scared. The nightmare is still so vivid." "I understand," Margaret said, squeezing my hand tighter. "And it's precisely because you know that pain better than anyone that you cannot let it continue." She looked at me, her gaze serious. "So, as the mother of a son is abusing his wife, and as a woman who was once a victim herself, if you can no longer persuade your son, then you must help your daughter-in-law. Help her escape that hellish marriage. Help her get out." Margaret's words echoed in my mind. I had run away to find peace, but true peace comes from a clear conscience, and my conscience would never be clear if I knew I had abandoned someone who desperately needed help. I was wrong. I thought I was powerless. I couldn't confront my son head-on, but I could be Clara's ally from the outside. I didn't have the strength to fight the battle myself, but I could put the weapon in her hand and show her the way out. A new, powerful decision took root in my heart. I looked at Margaret and nodded, my eyes filled with a resolve I hadn't felt in years. "Thank you," I said. "I know what I have to do." After my talk with Margaret, I felt as if I had woken up from a long, terrible dream. Over the next few days, I planned my strategy, remembering every piece of advice the lawyer had given me years ago. My heart was no longer heavy with cowardice, but filled with a calm, steely determination. I was waiting for the right moment, which came sooner than I expected. A week after I moved in, Clara came to visit. She carried a large basket of expensive fruit, her face wearing that gentle, yet strained smile. "Mom," she said apologetically, "I'm so sorry. Things have been so busy. This is the first chance I've had to see you." I looked at her. She had tried to hide her fatigue with makeup, but the bone-deep exhaustion was impossible to miss. In the bright daylight, I could clearly see a faint, yellowish-blue bruise near her hairline. My heart clenched. My son had done it again. I led her to the same stone bench where I had spoken with Margaret. I let her chatter about trivial things, listening patiently, but I knew I couldn't wait. When her conversation trailed off, I took a deep breath, looked her directly in the eye, and said, my voice filled with infinite sadness, Clara, the bruise on your forehead, did you bump into something again? Clara flinched, instinctively touching the spot. The panic on her face was raw. No, I didn't let her invent another lie. I took her cold, thin hands in mine. Don't lie to me anymore, Clara. I know everything. Clara's eyes widened in shock. Mom, what are you saying? What do you know? The night I decided to leave, I said slowly, I saw, in the bathroom, I saw everything. Clara's face went white as a sheet. She began to tremble, but then, like a deep-seated reflex, rushed to deny it. No, that's not it. Mom, you must have seen wrong. Julian, he just has a short temper. He gets like that when he's stressed. But he loves me and the baby. Don't think so badly of him. He's miserable too, Mom. She was crying as she spoke, her words defending her abuser sounding weak and pitiful. Looking at her, I saw myself 30 years ago. I let her finish. When her faint defense trailed off into sobs, I pulled her close and wrapped my arms around her. Stop lying to me, and stop lying to yourself, my child. My voice broke. The things you just said, I said them myself for almost 20 years. I also used to say the bruises on my body were from my own carelessness. But you and I both know that's not the truth, don't we? This shared pain, this empathy from a fellow victim, completely shattered Clara's last line of defense. She couldn't hold it together any longer. She buried her head in my shoulder and began to sob, a raw, gut-wrenching cry that seemed to release years of pent-up pain, humiliation, and resentment. I just held her quietly, letting her cry it all out. When her sobs subsided into sniffles, she began to talk, and the truth was even more horrifying than I had imagined. He hits me often, Mom, she said in a thin, broken whisper. For no reason. Sometimes because the soup is too salty, sometimes because he lost a contract at work. He takes all his frustration out on me. She choked back a sob. He humiliates me, calls me a freeloader, a waste of space. He even called me a barren hen, saying our family had the worst luck to have married me. Clara looked up, her eyes filled with tears. You know, Mom, before I married Julian, I was a respected teacher. I loved my job. But back then, he said something, and I was foolish enough to believe him. What did he say? I asked gently. He said, quit your job. I'll take care of you. Just stay home and be a good wife and mother. I believed his promise. I gave up my career and dreams. But I never imagined that I'll take care of you was actually a life sentence, turning me into a dependent with no voice, someone he could trample on whenever he wanted. She had tried so many times to go back to work, but every time she brought it up, Julian would fly into a rage, hit her, lock her in the house, and smash her phone. She was completely isolated. Then why? I asked, though I already knew. Why didn't you divorce him? Clara shook her head in despair. I've thought about it so many times, Mom, but he won't allow it. He threatened me. He said if I dared bring it up, he would make life a living hell for me and my family. He said since I haven't worked in years and have no income, I have nothing. If we divorced, I would leave with nothing, and the court would never side with me. He said I would live a miserable life and never get back on my feet. Hearing this, I squeezed her hand tightly. My son's cruelty and cunning had far surpassed his father's. He was a physical and psychological abuser, using every means to bind, control, and destroy his wife's existence. I waited for Clara to finish crying and help dry her tears. I looked her straight in the eye, my voice no longer that of a mother-in-law, but an ally. Don't be afraid, child. I am here. I will not leave you alone in that hell. You are not alone, I continued firmly, and you will not leave with nothing. Clara looked at me, her eyes still clouded with doubt and fear. It was then that I revealed my plan. I've already spoken to a lawyer. Those words were like a shot of adrenaline, causing a flicker of light to appear in Clara's empty eyes. For the first time in a very long time, I saw a glimmer of hope. "We will fight this together," I said quietly but firmly. "My son turned you into a victim. Now, we will use that to build the case against him." Seeing my daughter-in-law break down, I finally understood the depth of my own weakness. I had thought of myself as a victim with the right to run away, but I was wrong. Witnessing the same tragedy, my silence was complicity. My departure wasn't liberation. It was a cruel and selfish abandonment. "I am so sorry, Clara," I whispered, my voice choked. "I should have noticed sooner. I should have been stronger, not just for myself, but for you." Clara just shook her head, clinging to my sleeve like a drowning child finding a lifeline. Apologies were worthless. What she needed was a way out, a plan. I waited for her to calm down, and then with a resolve I had never felt before, I said, "Child, listen to me. This battle won't be easy, but you are not alone. From this moment on, I will be on your side. We are going to make him pay for everything he's done." It was the first time I had referred to my son so lie as him. In my heart, Julian was no longer my son. He was a criminal. "But I'm so scared, Mom," Clara whispered. "He'll never let me go." "That's because before you were alone," I said with certainty. "Now you have me, and more importantly, we have the law." I went to see Mr. Liu. At his name, Clara's eyes widened. Mr. Liu is an old classmate of mine, a righteous man, and the best divorce attorney in this city. He gave me a plan. Now, we will go over it together. You must remain calm and do exactly as I say. Do you understand? In a quiet corner of the retirement community's garden, two women, one old and one young, both survivors of domestic violence, plotted their counterattack. "According to Mr. Liu, the most important thing is to gather evidence," I explained. "Your words can be denied, but evidence cannot. First, from now on, whenever he verbally abuses or threatens you, secretly record it on your phone. Just keep your phone in your pocket with the recording app running. Second, every time he lays a hand on you, even a small bruise, immediately go to the bathroom, lock the door, and take a picture of the injury. Send those pictures to a secret email address that only we know. Third, start a diary. Document every abusive word and action every day. Finally, and this is very important, try to find and photograph all documents related to his finances, contracts, bank statements, property deeds. This is to counter his threat of leaving you with nothing." Clara's face turned pale. "What if he finds out?" "I know this is dangerous," I said, "but freedom is never free. You have to be brave, just this one time." My words seemed to strike a chord. She nodded, her expression shifting from fear to determination. "There's one last step," I said. "After we have enough evidence, you must be the one to formally ask for a divorce." Clara trembled. "He'll kill me. He'll go insane." "I know," I said, "but that is when he is most likely to reveal his true monstrous nature. You don't have to confront him. Just say the words and then get out of that house immediately. Run to a friend's place or take a cab straight here. Mr. Liu and I will handle the rest. We will use his rage against him." That afternoon, when Clara left, she still looked afraid, but no longer desperate. There was purpose in her step. She was transforming from a passive victim into a reluctant warrior, returning to the lion's den to gather weapons for the final battle. The following days were the longest of my life. I lived in constant anxiety, my phone always clutched in my hand. Every email from Clara's secret account made my heart seize up. A photo of a bruised arm, an audio file of Julian screaming vile insults, a short diary entry. "He hit me again today because I accidentally broke a bowl." Each piece of evidence was a knife in my heart, but also another brick paving the road to her freedom. I forwarded everything to Mr. Liu. He said we had more than enough. We just needed Clara to ask for the divorce and light the final fuse. After nearly 2 weeks, the day came. In the morning, I received a short text from Clara. "Mom, I'm going to tell him tonight." That day, I couldn't sit still. I paced my room, praying for her safety. By evening, my heart felt like it was going to beat out of my chest. I stared at my phone, waiting. Around 10 o'clock, it rang. It was Silwell. Ara. I snatched it up. "Hello, Clara? How are you?" "Mom." The voice was trembling and frantic. I told him." "What did he do? Did he do anything to you?" He... Clara's words were cut off by a piercing scream, followed by Julian's furious roar. "Who do you think you're calling? Give me the phone!" Then came the sickening sound of something smashing, and the line went dead. "Clara! Clara!" I yelled desperately, but all I heard was a dead tone. My hands and feet went numb. Cold sweat dripped down my back. I knew something terrible had happened. I redialed her number again and again, but no one answered. I could only imagine the horrifying scene. My son, the monster, was torturing his wife. About half an hour later, my phone rang. This time, it was from Julian's number. I answered with a trembling hand. "Hello? Mom!" The voice was ice cold with rage. "What have you been telling her? Who gave you the right to incite my wife to cause trouble? Are you trying to tear my family apart?" "Julian, what are you doing? You can't hurt Clara." He let out a chilling laugh. "Hurt her? I'm just teaching my wife a lesson she'll never forget. Let's see if she ever dares to mention divorce again." Then his voice turned cruel. "And you listen to me. From this day on, I won't let her take a step out of this house, and she will never see you again. You just stay put in that retirement home and rot." With that, he hung up. I was stunned. The plan had failed at the most critical step. Clara had not escaped. She had been brutally beaten and was now a captive. All contact was cut off. She was in mortal danger. I was truly panicked. I immediately dialed Mr. Liu's number. Mr. Liu, something's happened." My voice shook uncontrollably. "My son, he found out. He hit the girl and he's locked her in. We have to do something. We have to get her out now." The fight for Clara's freedom had entered its most dangerous phase. This was no longer just a legal battle. It was a real-life rescue mission. After that terrifying call with Julian, Mr. Liu and I took immediate action. We reported him to the police for domestic violence and unlawful imprisonment. With official intervention, my son was forced to open the door. They found a terrified Clara inside, covered in fresh bruises. She was taken to the hospital to have her injuries documented, and Mr. Liu arranged for her to stay in a safe, temporary location. The war had moved from the shadows into the open. I knew it was only a matter of time before Julian came for me. Sure enough, 2 days later, he appeared at the retirement community. He had lost his usual composure. Though still in an expensive suit, his face was haggard and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked like a cornered animal. He stormed up to me as I was reading in the garden, his voice dripping with accusation. "Mom, what are you doing? You're this old and you still want to stir up trouble? My family's happiness. My happiness. How could you bear to destroy it with your own hands?" I calmly closed my book. The fear I once felt was gone, replaced by a cold, profound disappointment. Happiness? I looked him straight in the eye. "You call the hell you created for Clara happiness? You call your fists and your insults happiness? Don't you dare use that word. You don't deserve it." "That's my private family business," he roared, causing a few people to stare. "I was teaching my wife a lesson. You have to keep a woman in her place, or she'll walk all over you. You're a woman. You should have understood and taught your daughter-in-law her place. Instead, you incited her to make trouble." Hearing those words, I knew for certain my son was beyond saving. His father's toxic ideology had seeped deep into his bones, becoming even more twisted. "You're wrong, Julian." My tone was firm. Violence isn't discipline. It's a crime. Controlling someone isn't how you maintain happiness. It's a sign of weakness and sickness. I have been silent for too long. If you can feel any remorse now, if you can recognize your mistakes and ask for Clara's forgiveness, maybe things can still be saved. Change before it's too late. I gave him one last chance, a faint hope that some small piece of humanity remained. He scoffed, letting out a bitter, ugly laugh. "Change? What mistakes have I made? I'm successful. I make money. I gave her a life of luxury. All she had to do was stay home, have children, and obey. It was you helping her who gave her these delusions. You ruined everything. Our argument grew louder. I no longer held back. The one who ruined everything is you. It was your brutality that killed Clara's love. It was your selfishness that pushed this family to the brink. Fine, just fine, he seethed, his eyes wide with fury. Since you've chosen to side with an outsider against your own son, then you listen to me. He pointed a shaking finger at my face. If you continue to help her, if you agree to this divorce, then the bond between us as mother and son is severed. From now on, I will consider myself as not having a mother. My heart ached as if squeezed in a vice, but I didn't back down. I had already lost my son the night I saw him torturing his wife. The person before me was just a stranger in my son's face. Fine, I said, my voice terrifyingly calm. If that is what you wish. And don't think a divorce will be that easy, he spat. I will never agree. I'll hire the best lawyers. I'll prove she's mentally ill, incompetent. She won't get a single penny, and she can forget about ever getting custody. With that, he stormed off, leaving me alone in the curious and sympathetic gazes of the people around me. The real war had just begun. The legal battle that followed was as brutal as Julian had threatened. He spared no expense, hiring aggressive lawyers who specialized in twisting the truth. Every piece of evidence we presented, they countered. The audio recordings, they claimed, were edited or were just normal arguments. The photos of the bruises, they argued, could have been self-inflicted. The medical report documenting her injuries, they said, was from a clumsy fall. They even submitted a falsified medical record signed by an unscrupulous doctor, attesting that Clara suffered from a psychological disorder with a history of self-harm and persecutory delusions. Everything ground to a stalemate. Clara, after the trauma of being held captive and now facing her husband's shameless tactics, was on the verge of a breakdown. She began to doubt herself, terrified she would lose the case, her child, and be left with nothing. The flame of hope we had so carefully kindled was being extinguished by a flood of lies. I was frantic, but all I could do was comfort her and trust Mr. Liu. Just as the case was about to be dismissed, a miracle happened. One afternoon, my phone suddenly rang. It was Clara, her voice no longer weary but clear, urgent, and punctuated with joyful sobs. Mom! Mom, I have good news. We have hope. What is it, child? Tell me slowly. The neighbors, Mom. It was the neighbors, she cried and laughed. The residents in the building across from ours. They just installed a new high-resolution security system. They got it for security, but they never expected one of the cameras would be pointed directly at the hallway on our 18th floor. My heart began to pound. What are you saying? The night he locked me in. Clara's voice trembled with excitement. He dragged me out into the hallway and hit me and screamed at me. That scene. The camera recorded the entire thing, crystal clear. A neighbor just reviewed the footage today and recognized us. I've already called Mr. Liu. Oh, Mom! I was speechless. A current of electricity ran through my body. It was divine providence, undeniable, unforgeable evidence that had taken place in a public space. Mr. Liu acted immediately. That video was like an atomic bomb dropped on the courtroom. In the footage, Julian's true nature was laid bare. His violent grabbing of her hair, the vicious slaps, and the cruel threats he hurled at a defenseless woman. Faced with this irrefutable proof, Julian's legal team could no longer deny the abuse. The civil case was now at risk of becoming criminal. To keep their client out of jail, they had no choice but to advise Julian to accept a settlement and agree to all our terms. Finally, the court's judgment came down. Clara's hellish marriage was officially over. She received half of their shared assets and, based on the proven damages, was awarded a significant sum in compensation. The day she received the divorce decree, Clara cried, but for the first time in years, they were tears of liberation. Clara's life had turned a new page. With the assets she received, she bought a small, elegant condo and decorated it to be a real home, no longer a cold, gilded cage, but a space filled with sunlight and hope. On the first day she moved in, the first person she came to pick up was me. Seeing her radiant smile, her clear eyes completely free of fear, I felt all my efforts had been worth it. Mom, thank you, she said, hugging me tightly. If it weren't for you, I might never have escaped. Don't say that, I said, stroking her hair. It's because you were brave enough. You saved yourself. We sat in her new sunlit condo, drinking tea. Suddenly, Clara looked at me, her cheeks slightly flushed, a little shy, but her eyes sparkling with pure happiness. Mom, I have some more good news. What good news? She placed a hand on her stomach, her voice soft. After the divorce, I kept feeling unwell. I went for a checkup and I found out I'm more than 2 months pregnant. I guess it was fate taking pity on us, Mom. I was stunned, then overwhelmed with immense joy. The woman who had been called a barren hen, the moment she escaped that abusive man, a new life began to grow inside her. It was the most precious gift, the sweetest reward for all she had endured. News of Clara's pregnancy somehow reached Julian. He tried every way imaginable to get in touch, filled with desperate theatrical regret. He begged, Mom, give me one last chance. I know I was wrong. I was a monster. Please, talk to Clara for me. Let me come back and take care of her and my child. I swear I'll change. Before I hung up and blocked his number for good, I said only one thing. The night you imprisoned and beat a woman who was already carrying your child, your chances ran out. You are not worthy. Clara's answer was the same. The scars on her heart were too deep. She could not forgive or trust such a cruel man ever again. Our lives continued peacefully. I often visited Clara's home, where we would cook together, take walks, and shop for the coming baby. One day she took my hand, her gaze sincere. Mom, my own mother passed away a long time ago. You gave me a new life. Would you adopt me as your daughter? That way, your future grandchild will have both a grandma and a maternal grandmother. I couldn't help but let the tears fall. I had lost a biological son, but heaven had blessed me with a devoted daughter and a grandchild on the way. Yes, I nodded through my tears. I would love that. I didn't move back in with her. I stayed at the retirement community, where I had my own friends and life, but her condo became my second home, a true home, not built with money or pretense, but with love, understanding, and courage. My life had been through a tremendous storm, but now, on the downward slope of my years, I had finally found true peace. That night, tucking Leo in, he whispered, Grandma, I don't even miss the iPad anymore. It was a small miracle. We had 5 days until Brooke's return, 5 days to finish our preparations. When she walked through that door, she wouldn't find broken children or a submissive mother-in-law. She'd find a united, resilient family, ready for battle. I, the old teacher who didn't do anything, was about to teach her the most important lesson of her life. The 10th day started with a revelation. Chloe crept into my room at 6 a.m., her eyes wide and bloodshot. Grandma, I have to tell you something. Mom has another phone, a secret one. I saw it by accident and... She trailed off, trembling. And what did you see, honey? Photos of her with Uncle Dominic, but also documents. Papers from a bank in Miami, and something about a house she bought there. My heart stopped. A house in Miami. And more, she whispered. An email from a lawyer about custody. Mom is planning to take us to Miami to live with Uncle Dominic. It said something about the U.S. not having an extradition treaty for civil cases. My God, she was planning to abduct the children and vanish. Anything else? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Chloe pulled a small USB drive from her pocket. I copied everything. I guess, deep down, I knew someone would need to see it. I hugged my fierce, brave girl. My 10-year-old granddaughter had carried this terrifying secret alone. I plugged the drive into my laptop. The findings were devastating. There was proof of the Miami house, purchased in Dominic's name with money Brooke siphoned from their joint accounts. There was also a detailed plan. Phase 1, convince M I need a training trip. Phase 2, Dominic will empty the house of valuables. Phase 3, when I get back, provoke a huge fight with the old woman, make it look like she mistreated the kids. Phase 4, use 2, Hat as an excuse to leave with the children. Phase 5, once in Miami, no going back. The most chilling part was an audio file of Brooke on the phone. I don't care if the brats cry for their dad, she was saying. They'll forget him. Michael is so pathetic he won't fight. If he does, I have edited videos that make it look like he hits Aiden. Technology works miracles. Chloe started to sob. Was Mom really going to say Dad hit us? Your mom would do whatever it took, I said grimly. But Dad has never laid a hand on us. Never. I know, my love. That's why I've been recording everything. To protect you and your dad. Aiden walked in. Chloe told him everything. Fury ignited in my grandson's eyes. I'm going to kill her. I'm going to… No, Aiden. I cut him off. You're not doing anything violent. That's what she wants. We're going to be smarter. How? He demanded. With the truth, I said, and the law on our side. I immediately called the lawyer. He told me to bring Michael to his office. While we waited, Leo joined us. Why is everyone sad? We're not sad, sweetie, I told him. We're getting ready. Ready for what? To protect our family. Leo was quiet, then said something that shattered my heart. Grandma, I know Mom doesn't love me. Once I heard her telling Uncle Dominic I was a mistake, that if it weren't for me, she would have been free a long time ago. 7 years old. My grandson heard his own mother call him a mistake. I pulled him onto my lap. Leo, you are not a mistake. You are a gift. If your mother is too blind to see that, it's her loss, not yours. Then why did she have me? He whispered. It was Aiden who answered. To trap Dad. Mom got pregnant with you right after Dad asked for a divorce the first time. Dad wanted a divorce before? Chloe was stunned. Yeah, about 3 years ago, Aiden said. Dad found out Mom had spent all of and Pa Richard's life insurance money on a trip with her friends. But then Mom told him she was pregnant with Leo, and Dad stayed. There I was, 35, beaming with my first class. You looked happy, Grandma. I was, I said. Teaching was my passion, just like cooking, just like loving you all. Why did you let Mom push you away? He asked. I sat beside him. Out of cowardice, I suppose. I thought if I didn't make waves, she would change. But abusers don't change when you submit. They just get stronger. Grandma, do you think I'm like Mom? Sometimes I feel so much anger. Anger doesn't make you a bad person, Aiden. It's what you do with it that defines you. Your mother uses her anger to hurt. You can use yours to protect, to build, to change things that are wrong. That morning, I taught them to make my mother's famous chili, a 4-hour ritual I had waited years to share. Why is it so complicated? Chloe asked. Because the best things in life take time, patience, and love, I told her. There are no shortcuts to anything worthwhile. Leo toasted the spices, his face a mask of concentration. It smells like Christmas, he declared. It smells like tradition, I corrected gently. My great-grandmother, your great-great-grandmother, made this same chili. A part of her lives on in us. Are we history? Leo asked. We are living history, my love. Every one of us carries the stories of those who came before. While we cooked, Michael sat with the lawyer, finalizing their strategy. Every so often, he would look over at us, a sad, hopeful smile on his face. Dad seems different, Chloe observed. Your dad is waking up from a very long, bad dream, I explained. That afternoon, Dr. Wallace came for a special family session. I want each of you to write a letter to Brooke, she instructed. You're not sending it. This is to get out everything you're holding inside. Aiden filled 3 pages with furious words. Chloe wrote a single page of heartbreaking questions. Leo drew a picture of his Mo, there as a monster with suitcases for hands. Michael wrote 1 line. I forgive you, but I will not allow you to cause any more harm. I wrote, I failed as a mother-in-law by not stopping you sooner. I will not fail as a grandmother. Now, Dr. Wallace said, I want you to burn them. Let the pain go. In the backyard, under a soft rain, we burned the letters. As the paper curled into ash, Leo asked, Are we free now? Now, the doctor replied, we begin to be free. The 12th day was for practical preparations. Carol came over with her sister, Lauren, from CPS. The day Brooke gets here, the children will be at my house, Carol said. It's better if they don't witness the confrontation. But I want to see her face when she realizes we know, Aiden protested. No, sweetie, I intervened. Revenge is not the goal. Protection is. Lauren reviewed our file. With this, we can request emergency custody for Michael immediately. Brooke won't get near the children without court supervision. What if she brings that Dominic guy? Michael asked anxiously. We'll have a patrol car on the corner, Lauren assured him. Any sign of violence, and they'll intervene. That night, I found Michael in the garden. What are you thinking about? About Dad. Do you think he'd be disappointed in me? Your father would be so proud you're finally doing the right thing. It took you a while, but you got here. Mom, how did you do it? Raise me all by yourself? I didn't find the strength, I told him. I built it, day by day, decision by decision, just like you're building it now. On the 13th day, we had a real family day at the park where I used to take Michael. The children ran and played. For the first time, I saw them just being kids. Grandma, look! Leo yelled from the top of a tree. I can see the whole city! Be careful! I started to shout, but Michael stopped me. Let him, Mom. He needs to feel brave. The psychological manipulation is palpable. The oldest is borderline depressive, the girl has chronic anxiety, and the little one is just acting out what he sees. What can I do? I asked. For now, document everything. When the father arrives, I need to speak with him. And when the mother returns, well, I'll be opening a formal investigation. After Lauren left, I found the 3 children huddled on the stairs. They no longer looked like tyrants. They looked like what they were, scared, abandoned kids. Are they going to take us away? Leo asked, trembling. I sat down with them. No, sweetie. No one is separating you from your father. But things are going to change. And change hurts at first. But sometimes it's necessary. Grandma, Aiden said, unable to meet my eyes. About Uncle Dominic. Dad really will die of sadness if he finds out. No, honey, I assured him. Your father is stronger than you think, and he deserves the truth. We all do. That afternoon, as they cleaned up their mess without complaint, I overheard Chloe whisper to Aiden, what if Grandma is right? What if Mom doesn't love us? Shut up, Aiden shot back, but his voice lacked conviction. Mom has to love us. She's our mom. But I could tell he was starting to doubt it. That night, Leo came to me with a torn photograph he had painstakingly taped back together. It was a picture of his father on his college graduation day. I'm sorry, Grandma. I tried to fix it. I wrapped my arms around him, and my youngest grandson hugged me back. We can fix a lot of things, Leo, I whispered. But first, we have to admit they're broken. And in a few hours, when Michael arrived, the real rebuilding was about to begin. Michael got there at 7:15, straight from the plant, grease-stained and exhausted. For a moment, I saw the 8-year-old boy who cried because kids made fun of his patched-up shoes. Hi, Mo. Meh. Where are the kids? In the dining room doing homework. Michael, sit down. We need to talk. Is it about the leak? It's not the leak in the roof, son. It's the leak in your marriage. He froze. What are you talking about? I slid a folder across the table. Screenshots of Brooke's conversations, statements for the credit cards she'd opened in his name, and photos from her work trip. Michael's hands shook as he picked up the papers. The color drained from his face. This has to be a mistake. Brooke is at a sales conference. Michael, honey, Brooke is in Miami with her lover. The children know. They've known for months. The children? His voice cracked. They call him Uncle Dominic, the one who takes care of them when you travel, the one who sleeps in your bed, the one they had to keep